Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'm Tanya Tucker. I'm the Chief of National Engagement and Partnerships with Full Frame Initiative. And I have the pleasure of sitting down and chatting with one of our wonderful senior fellows, Sandy Ambrozy. Sandy, thanks so much for taking time to talk with me
Thank you.
today. As you know, and you've heard us say countless times, right, when we talk about well-being, that it really is about us individually and collectively being whole. And part of it is being able to see each other and ourselves in a full frame or a fuller frame. So I'm wondering if we could just start with who is Sandy Ambrozy, and you giving us your full frame answer on that and whatever you want to share with us.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for the question. It's not often that you get to you're asked it in that way. A lot of times it's, where'd you go to school and where did you work? And so if instead of that, I would say I'm a person who's just deeply curious about things. I have a deep interest in a range of things, which sometimes feels eclectic and kind of broad, but to me, it just makes perfect sense to have multiple interests in a number of things that I think are important to our civil society in general. And those include things like sustainable design, and the civil legal justice system, and a deep interest in the role of libraries and how they advance our democracy. Um, I love to travel, and I love being with family.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And I feel like you have brought and bring to FFI and this well-being work sort of all of those facets of yourself to the work. And, we are extremely grateful for the deep passion, commitment, and expertise that all of our fellows bring to the work. And I am curious as to, how you got connected with Full Frame to begin with, and what was it about well-being that obviously sparked something in you and stuck with you that, you want to continue to be on this journey with us.
Yeah. Well, in my previous role, I was at the Kresge Foundation and working with a team on human services, but we were really trying to decouple the word human from services and think about human development and human progress instead of the transaction of a service. And that naturally led us to Full Frame. And so I had the honor of being the program officer reviewing the grant requests. And so I got to be curious and ask a lot of questions about the work. I got to know Katja, and I just get very attached to my grantee partners. And so when I concluded my chapter there, I just there were a series of blueprint signers calls and other webinars that you were doing, and I just kept signing up for them. And then started thinking about, I was continuing to work on the transformation of the civil justice system, how the well-being design principles just animated really the transformation. And Katja and I had a conversation, and well, then next thing I knew, I was a fellow.
Great, great. I know for your work with us and your fellowship with us, as sort of broad as your career has been, and all of these things that interest you and have sparked curiosity, you have zoned in a bit on the civil legal justice system. And I remember early on partnering with you and working with you on a webinar we were going to be doing about it. And I have to admit that my initial sort of thinking, I was like, okay, civil legal justice system. First of all, I wasn't even sure I understood what that meant. And I was like, what? Okay, what, all right, I know well-being is across like, everything, but I was kind of scratching my head of like, what's the connection there? And then hearing it from you and truly understanding like the expansiveness of the civil legal justice system and all parts of life that it touches for us. I was like, I have to say, my mind was blown on that potential connection. So I'm wondering if you could just share a bit about sort of your thinking around well-being and the civil legal justice system and, the potential impact there, which has been, your focus of your work with us.
Wow, thank you. And it's I appreciate when we have conversations and people say, at full frame, well, I think that's a civil legal issue. It's like, okay, it's starting to, the seeds have been
That's
planted.
right. That's right.
Because I see it everywhere, which is, I got to turn it off sometimes. Well, I think one of the things, so I started working on, and interested in the transformation of the civil justice system. And as you said, the civil justice system impacts all our life. If you're thinking about family issues, child custody, child support, eviction, driver's license, expungement, guardianships. I mean, there's just almost no facet of your life that isn't touched in some ways by civil legal issues. And in fact, the Legal Service Corporation has done a study about the legal needs, and those that have that are low income experience at least one legal issue a year, and many experience more just because life is complex, and they I'm a navigator in our civil court system here, and oftentimes people come in with 3 or 4 issues related to getting the custody of their kids, getting child support, and or enforcing parenting time. So one of the things that I was really drawn to was how so much of the civil justice system is about an attorney. That's the answer to everything. Even the word justice gap suggests you can fill it with something, and by design, the field wants you to fill it with attorneys. How can we get more pro bono hours? How can we get more attorneys doing this? Well, if you do the math, there's not enough, never will be. So it's wordsmithing, it's really justice barriers, not a gap. And when you reframe it that way, then you start to see more issues start to surface as to why people can't solve their legal issues. And for me, the full frame, the principles in particular, lifted it up from individual action to start thinking about policies and systems.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that the civil justice community and stakeholders, for the most part, don't look at. They don't look at anything else beyond their cylinder of excellence. And I think the principles really, and examples of really justice advocates when mapped against it, just create a spark and show what it can look like. So for example, if you think about the blueprint of principle, design with and not for, it takes you immediately to the work that the Nevada Legal Service is doing around guardianships. Guardianships, as you well know, are when someone has to help you navigate your healthcare, your living, and it goes to such an extent that it actually can take away a lot of your rights: your right to vote, your right to marry, your right to decide who you communicate with, where you live. I mean, it can be pretty harsh. Well, the legal services of Nevada did something that is almost unheard of in the legal profession. They actually asked the people who were being placed under guardianship, or a petition was filed for it, do you want to be under guardianship? And many people said, no, we never asked for it. We didn't want it. So they were able to defeat 27% of the guardianship petitions and also terminate 18% just because of stepping into the principle of design with, not for.
Right.
So
And not assuming and yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. So I think it's the principals are providing some scaffolding for all of the sparks that are out there that are doing tremendous work, but aren't necessarily seeing how they're connecting. And this gives them a way to kind of look at the landscape in a brighter sense because there's more. And it's, again, working towards a transformed system.
yeah. One of the things that I love about the uh civil justice determinants of well-being that you put together was that it said that like, hey, and this is happening, right, in pockets around the country. We need more of it, but it's happening, and giving those concrete examples so people could go from what could just be sort of in theory, right? Like, yeah, that principle sounds nice, but drilling it down to, and here's an actual example of what this could look like.
Yeah.
So I know you just finished sort of the, latest edition
2.0.
right, 2.0 of the determinants of well-being. So wondering what, the 2.0, what does that bring us? What was new about it? And why did you feel compelled that there needed to be a 2.0?
Right, right. Well, the good news is I think that there's been, in the 2 years since the first one, there's more examples. They're just more light, more. Oh, again, I don't think it's the work that I'm doing, but I think the field is just doing more. And in particular, I see the work around all the principles are being animated, but I think spanning boundaries in particular kind of gets me super excited. And an awareness of how something in one field is or sector is really impacting and driving another. One of my favorite, sadly, I mean, favorite is not the right word. One harsh example is around medical debt and how hospitals are not advocating for their patients and or pursuing eligible funding for them or examining them for not having the resources to pay, and they're immediately charging them, and they go into medical debt, even when they could have been eligible for public assistance. And so all of this medical debt is being pushed by hospitals who are not doing their job. And it's causing people to, when they do have some resources, pay that back or and forego medicine or treatment or other things that help them have stability in their life and safety, the other domains.
Right, right. Are you seeing any impacts, from your work already? That's my first question. And then sort of to follow up on that, like, what would you hope, right, as you finish up your fellowship with us, which I hope won't be for a very long time, but when that time comes, all right, and you look back, like, what do you hope the impact of this work will be?
Well, I think we're still in the planting seeds
Yeah.
and thinking about full frame sort of theory. I think we're activating first movers. And I think a very interesting example of where it is being planted and cultivated is in DC with the Social
Yeah. Yeah.
Justice Transformation Network. And the participants in that have stated that they want to center well-being, and that the anti-racism and anti-poverty as well. And I think they're intellectually there. It's just, I think it's a reminder of the day-to-day forces that prevent, block, make it hard to continue to focus on this. But it's inspiring to see how they show up every day to try and work on it. And hopefully there'll be, some results soon about the efforts that will really, I think, galvanize them more. Once you have results, you get even more excited about it.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned DC Bar Foundation, because I was thinking about them and how I don't think that connection really would have been made without you, right? Being part of our team and the work that you are doing, right? I don't think it would have been a sort of natural reach out for us of like, wait, how do we get, local bar foundations, involved in this work? And so I think it's because of you sort of shedding a light on this and the civil legal justice system, and that connection that I think not only has the players on the ground and players in that system perhaps thinking about this differently, but certainly I think has expanded our knowledge at FFI, and in terms of potential partners and folks we could be engaging with and working with on the ground. So that's been great. I want to thank you for spending some time with me, and just another thank you for expanding how I think about this work and the impact of the work. I'm one of those people now that like reads things, sees things, hears things, and is like, oh yeah, that's the civil legal justice issue. So
that's why I enjoy so much being a fellow. It is that you all share an interest in being curious too, and
absolutely.
that you were willing to join this journey with me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate your time, and
All right.
grateful for all you're bringing to this movement.
Thank you. All right.